Hey guys, welcome to the 14. I'm Nick Cole, and we're breaking down each of the Week 12 SEC football games from a betting perspective. Today, we're talking about the Vanderbilt Commodores visiting the Ole Miss Rebels. This game is going to be played on Saturday, November 20th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time at Vaught-Hemingway Stadium in Oxford, Mississippi. This game is going to be broadcast on the SEC Network. From a betting perspective, Ole Miss opened as a 34-point favorite. That line has moved to 36 as of Thursday afternoon. On the over-under total, it opened at 68.5 and has dropped all the way to 64.5 as of the recording of this video. I'll bring in our betting analyst, Christopher Smith. Christopher, this is a game that gets played every season as a quote-unquote SEC rivalry game. It doesn't feel like it's going to be as close as some of those games should be.
This wasn't number one in the list of selling points for Lane Kiffin when they offered him the job, but I'm sure he gave a fist pump or a clipboard toss when he found out that their permanent rival was Vanderbilt. So I'm sure that's something. It's also going to basically come down to the Egg Bowl for Ole Miss to have a 10-1 regular season, which is pretty nice. But why don't you tell us about the weather and injuries and Nick's news and notes ahead of this matchup?
Sure. So Saturday evening in Oxford, we're looking at temperatures in the low 50s at kickoff. So the game will probably be played mostly in the 40s. There's a chance of rain later in the game, so pay attention to that radar as we get closer to kickoff time. The wind is forecasted at 7 to 8 miles per hour, so that's not so bad, but if there's storm blowing in, it's probably worth monitoring that as well. On the injury side of things, we'll start with Vanderbilt. Right guard Ben Cox hasn't played since week 7. Center Michael Warden has played 2 snaps since week 2, so they're feeling it a little bit on the offensive line that's already kind of weak. Quarterback Ken Seals returned from injury against Kentucky last week. They gave way to Mike Wright in the second half of that game with another injury, aggravation of injury. At least said on Thursday that he expects that Seals will be available to play in this game on Saturday, but he may be limited. So if you read between the lines a little bit, that might mean that Mike Wright is going to get the start. And based on the way that they've played recently, maybe deserves the start. On the Ole Miss side of things, wide receiver Jonathan Mingo and tight end Chase Rogers remain out. But the Rebels are getting healthier overall. If you remember, watched our videos over the course of this season, Ole Miss's list has been pretty extensive, but we're down to just a couple of names as we're nearing the end of the regular season. On the news and notes side of things, let's start with Ole Miss and say that the Lane train chugged right along with College Game Day in town in week 11. They were under the national spotlight with Texas A&M here and totally showed up to play and won 29-19. Maybe the most surprising part of that win was how well the Rebels defense played in the process. Obviously, A&M has had trouble moving the ball at times this season, but it wasn't against the Rebels defense that has been pretty porous at times. Did we expect that to happen? So Lane Kiffin, who's been very critical of his defense, called it an amazing day for them and called it amazing against one of the hottest teams in America. And it's hard to disagree with that. It'll be senior day in Oxford for the Rebels as they attempt to close out an unbeaten season at home, actually. Their 2 losses on the season were at Alabama and at Auburn. So they do really well here at Vaught-Hemingway. On the Vandy side of things, they bombed their final home game on senior day against Kentucky. Doors bettors were probably pretty happy with the final score of 34-17, but the 31-3 halftime score really gave the real story on how Vanderbilt played in this game. Kentucky scored on its first 4 possessions, scored touchdowns, had 28 points in the blink of an eye. And they sort of just coasted their way to a win. Vandy did score a couple of second half touchdowns to cover that 21-point spread with Mike Wright replacing Ken Seals. And so it really just, we're running out the clock on the first year of Clark Lee. We understand that he doesn't have the depth that he needs. He doesn't have the playmakers that he needs. And he's probably not, he's got 2 SEC games left, but he's probably going to go winless in his first season in conference play. So rough season for the Commodores. And the last thing I point out before I hand it over to you for the betting analysis, Christopher, is that Ole Miss is going to have a short turnaround coming out of this game. The Egg Bowl is being played on Thanksgiving this year. So we're going to have a Saturday night game against Vanderbilt and then an Egg Bowl on Thursday. So I wonder, as I hand it over to you, if this team that has dealt with injuries for the majority of the season maybe decides to call it a day a little bit early if they can with some of their key players and with a line at 35, 36 points. Does that factor into how we want to bet this one?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely something to consider if you're handicapping this game, because basically it's up to Lane, right? Does he want to drop 50 on Vanderbilt, kind of dunk on a team and there's only a couple more chances for big time recruits that you're trying to keep in your signing class or flip or whatever, like to make a statement for that. So I'm interested to see if Kiffin is more, kind of trying to hold everything close for the Egg Bowl, or is he saying, hey, we got a chance to, put up a huge number here against Vanderbilt and make some headlines and excite some recruits? Like, what is his mindset? So if you can find any hints about that, it would probably help. But the Ole Miss defense has played well, and I would say 3 of its last 4 games. I mean, 17 to LSU, 14 to Liberty, 19 to Texas A&M. Against Liberty, especially, they gave up a ton of yards, but they played really well on the plus side of the field. And they rank 56th on defense in SP Plus now. Vanderbilt is 120th in SP Plus on offense. And the Ole Miss has cashed 5 consecutive unders in part because of that defense. And Sam Williams and Chance Campbell, they both have 11 tackles for loss now, which is tied for 3rd in the SEC. So they're making some havoc plays also. And you mentioned some injuries on Vanderbilt's offensive line. So those 2 players may have a chance to be in the backfield some more. And the Ole Miss offense is getting healthier. Their 2 offensive linemen played every snap against in their last game. And Braylon Sanders and Dontario Drummond played 79 and 75 out of 93 snaps. And I do think if you're going to see one thing that Lane Kiffin will probably hold back, he'll probably wait for Corral to run the ball for the Egg Bowl. Corral does seem to be getting a little healthier slowly but surely. If the Commodores have any chance in this game and want to put up points, it's probably by running the football. So one thing to monitor there. Nick, we're getting late in the season, so might as well try to have a little bit of fun. I'm going to present a scenario to you. Let's say, just hypothetically, your family gets kidnapped, and the only way they get released is one of 2 things. One, you can get this bet right, or if you don't, they've got to watch the 2002 Vanderbilt season on loop 10 times before they can get let go. So you don't know how mad they'd be after that. So I guess what's your pick on this game to prevent that from happening to your family?
That's quite a scenario you've given me. 2002 Vanderbilt. Let's see. That would be, I believe, Jay Cutler's freshman season, Bobby Johnson's first year. They ran a little bit of triple option with Jay Cutler, actually. Maybe they could learn a little bit about Vanderbilt's history, because I don't know that I trust the Commodores. My pick in this game it is going to be Vanderbilt plus 36, because I think they can keep it within 5 touchdowns and do it in a style that they sort of did against Kentucky last week, where they fell behind. And then I think Lane Kiffin is going to call off the Dogs for the sake of getting healthy. And the game he really wants to win is on Thursday. So I could very easily see him jumping out to a 42, 49 point total for his offense, and then just sort of saying, all right, that's it, we're good. And then Vanderbilt is capable of moving the ball enough to get to within 5 touchdowns. So I like Vandy plus 36. I like the over 64.5 because of the scenario I'm playing out. But before I hand it over to you for your pick, Christopher, I do want to let our listeners know that we've got an opportunity with Action 24/7 Sports to double the amount of money that you have to bet on this game. It's a deal for new customers with that sports book for a limited time. You get your deposit matched 100% up to $800. So if you sign up today and make your first deposit using code SOUTH14, that's the important part, SOUTH14 as your deposit code, Action will double your deposit up to $800. So download the app or visit action247.com to get things started. Action 24/7 is by Tennesseans for Tennesseans, and you've got action. You know what my action is on this one. I'm going to take the doors, and I'm going to subject my kids to the 2002 season to protect them. But how do you bet this one?
Well, they did beat UConn and Furman that year, so maybe it's not all bad if they got to watch. At least you got a couple wins in there. But if you kidnapped my wife and said the bet on this game is whether she gets free or not, I would go with over 64.5, because I think the Ole Miss offense is getting healthier, and I think at least in the first half they're going to put up whatever score they want. And I think their defense is feast or famine, which is also sort of good for the over, because either they're going to, get a big tackle for loss or a turnover, or Vanderbilt's probably going to be able to run the ball at least a little bit. So either way, that probably is good for the over. So I'm also going to go with Ole Miss minus 36. And this is another game that I'm going to stay far away from the side on. I tell people all the time to bet numbers and not teams. But my pick here is basically because from a team standpoint, I like Ole Miss regardless of the number. However, the number being over 35 is not something that I really like. So if you're betting numbers, it may be smart to take Vanderbilt, especially at plus 36. But I'll take Ole Miss minus 36 over 64.5. For Nicole, I'm Christopher Smith for the 14, and we'll talk to you next week.